Nobody expected this. Just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump was demanding Iran's unconditional surrender. He said Iran was weak, isolated, and close to collapse. But now, suddenly, the tone has changed. Now we are hearing about negotiations, deals, and even a possible joint control of the Strait of Hormuz. So the big question now being asked around the world is: did Donald Trump surrender to Iran, or is this all part of a bigger strategy? The situation began when tensions between the United States, Israel, and Iran reached a dangerous level. Airstrikes, missile attacks, military bases targeted, ships threatened in the Persian Gulf. The world started fearing a major Middle East war. Iran responded strongly, and one of its biggest weapons was not just missiles, but geography. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important oil routes in the world, became the center of global attention. Almost 20% of the world's oil passes through this narrow waterway. When Iran threatened to block or control the Strait of Hormuz, oil markets around the world reacted immediately, prices started rising, and global economies became nervous. At the beginning of the conflict, Donald Trump took a very aggressive position. He said clearly that there would be no negotiations, no talks, and no agreements unless Iran surrendered completely. He claimed that Iranian military infrastructure had been heavily damaged and that Iran was running out of options. Many analysts believed the conflict would end with Iran being forced into a deal on American terms. But things did not go exactly as expected. Iran did not surrender. Instead, Iran continued its pressure strategy, especially through the Strait of Hormuz and regional influence. The longer the conflict continued, the more pressure started building not just on Iran, but also on the United States and its allies. Oil prices, global trade routes, military costs, and political pressure all started increasing. Then suddenly, reports started coming that the United States was open to negotiations with Iran. And then came the most surprising statement: the idea that the Strait of Hormuz could be controlled jointly by the United States and Iran. This statement shocked many political observers because only a short time earlier, the United States was talking about Iran surrendering, and now there was talk of cooperation. This is where the global debate started. Some people began saying that Donald Trump had backed down. Others said this was not surrender but smart politics. Because in international politics, wars often end not with total victory, but with negotiations where both sides claim success. To understand whether this is surrender or strategy, we have to understand why the Strait of Hormuz is so important. This narrow passage connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea, and it is one of the most important oil shipping routes on Earth. If this route is closed or controlled by one country, it can affect oil prices all over the world, including Europe, Asia, and America. This gives Iran a very powerful strategic advantage because geographically Iran sits right next to this route. So even if the United States has a stronger military, Iran has a strong geographic position. This is why many military experts say that a war with Iran is not simple and cannot be won quickly. As the conflict continued, both sides realized that a long war could be very dangerous. For the United States, a long war means huge military costs, political pressure, and global economic problems. For Iran, a long war means economic sanctions, infrastructure damage, and internal pressure. So slowly, the situation started moving from military confrontation toward negotiations. Now the question again comes back. If Trump first demanded surrender and now is talking about negotiations and joint control, does that mean he changed his position? Or does that mean the United States achieved its military objectives and now wants a political agreement? Some analysts believe that the United States wanted to weaken Iran militarily and economically first, and then negotiate from a position of strength. Others believe that Iran survived the pressure and forced the United States to accept negotiations instead of surrender. In reality, international politics is rarely black and white. There is rarely a clear winner and a clear loser. Most wars end with both sides declaring victory in their own media and political speeches. If negotiations actually happen between the United States and Iran, both sides will try to present it as their own success. The United States might say Iran came to the negotiating table because of military pressure. Iran might say the United States failed to defeat Iran and was forced to negotiate. So the truth will probably be somewhere in the middle. But one thing is very clear. The Strait of Hormuz has become one of the most powerful bargaining tools in this entire conflict. Control over this route means control over a large part of the world's oil supply, and that means influence over the global economy. This is why the world is watching very carefully what happens next between Donald Trump and Iran's leadership. Because this is not just about two countries. This is about oil, global trade, Middle East power balance, and the future of international politics. So did Donald Trump surrender to Iran? Right now, it does not look like a simple surrender. It looks more like a political and military chess game, where both sides are trying to avoid a long war while still claiming victory. And in global politics, sometimes negotiations are not a sign of weakness. Sometimes negotiations are the final stage of a war where both sides realize that continuing the conflict will cost more than ending it. The coming weeks will decide whether this becomes a historic peace deal, a temporary ceasefire, or just another phase in a long conflict between the United States and Iran. But one thing is certain. The world is now watching Donald Trump, Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz very closely. Because whatever happens here can change the Middle East, oil prices, and global politics for many years. And the biggest question still remains unanswered. This was surrender or strategy?